Hello, everyone. My name is Erin Smith, and I am both a professional tarot reader and an associate marriage and family therapist in the state of California. And I am here to do a full moon reading. We are going to be having a full moon in the sign of Taurus tomorrow, November 5th. And full moons are always oppositions. So the moon is opposite the sun, which is why it is fully reflecting the light of the sun. So the moon will be in Taurus and the sun is in Scorpio. And there's a lot of energy culminating at this time. In fact, today, when I am recording this, this is the 4th. We are having some key elections in the United States. The one that I am most excited about is Zoran Mamdani. I'm very excited about him as a democratic socialist and a seemingly really genuine human being. I feel excited that he may be opening the door to a more progressive viewpoint in politics, which I feel we desperately need. Someone who's looking out for the collective and not just a select few elites. So all that said, I thought I would come on here and consult the cards and see what the cards have to say about how things are shaking out at this time, what archetypal energies we might be encountering, and what possible outcomes of that might look like. So I'm going to do my thing. I'm going to go silent. I'm going to concentrate while I shuffle, and I will be with you momentarily. I'm just going to say a prayer over these cards. Hmm. Wow. Wow. So, sort of an interesting collection of cards here. And while there's definitely some disquieted energy and, some shadow that we are confronting, there's also some really joyful, hopeful energies that are coming forward. That there's definitely an emphasis here on alchemization of conflict in order to create relational um, bliss. Might I use that word based on the cards that I'm seeing here? So, in order to do this, Spirit is saying it is important for us to have a strong vision. In order to create the life that we want to see, we first have to imagine it into being. And that's very much being outlined here with these two cards. So the way that I usually describe the Seven of Cups, so you can see this image, sort of a mysterious image. There is this figure, and he's looking out into this fog about these sort of not fully formed images of what he might desire. And I like to call this card emotional vagary, of course, because we're dealing with cups, love, emotions, intuition. So, what is emotional vagary? Well, it's being in confusion or delusion around how you feel about something. And generally speaking, this card comes up in readings when we are afraid we're not going to get what we want or we're going to lose what we have. And so you can think of it as a sort of self-imposed fog. It's almost like a coping mechanism to deal with the anticipated pain of disappointment, right? If you don't think the thing that you most desire is going to come to full fruition, then it's easier to say, gosh, I don't know what I want, than it is to say, I'm willing to risk my heart desiring this thing that may not come true. And yet, the universe is quite clear. It cannot conspire to bring you your heart's desire until you are willing to claim it. In order to create it, you have to first vision it. It's like anything else that we make in the material world. We build from plans. You know, if you're gonna build a house, you're gonna draw up some plans initially. And even that will start as just the spark of an idea. So there are steps that one must take in order to create something, to bring it to full fruition. And Queen energy is telling us that we can harness this and creative life force energy now to do something really powerful. We have the ability to wield this creative energy in a powerful way. That is what the Queen of Wands is telling us. And what is the energy? Well, it's chaotic. It's there's a lot of discord, right? And so I want to look at this in a really energetic way because that's really what we're sort of dealing with the Five of Wands. Wand energy, of course, is passion, creativity, life force energy. And the Five of Wands is this sort of chaotic, strife, this energy of conflict. And, what Spirit is saying is that we can harness, rather than getting pulled into the fray, we can harness this energy and direct it rightly, so long as we have a clear and conscious idea of how it is that we wish to do that. And remember, consciousness implies that we're not being reactionary. This is where we can get into trouble. If we are impassioned and we aren't fully embodied, we aren't aware of what's going on below the level of consciousness, it's easy to be stirred in ways that are not productive, right? To be reactionary, to say things with malice rather than, directing that energy towards a creative end. And so, look, Spirit is saying that there is the energy of conflict, and how are we going to use it? How are we going to take that energy and create something conscious based on a vision that might be beneficial to us and to others? And in order to do this, we really have to look into our unconscious, look into the shadow parts of ourselves that have largely been disowned. And this isn't just personally, this is also collectively. So the moon is a card that I often associate with early childhood wounding. And the reason that I do is that when we are in our earliest stages of development, we are internalizing the felt experience of the world, and it gets buried. It becomes it gets buried in the unconscious. It becomes the programming out of which we operate. It also becomes the programming out of which we construct a cognitive sense of self. Because at the time that we are developing a felt sense of the world around the age of 1, it predates uh, our kind of cognitive narrative sense of self. The I am has not come on board yet. It doesn't come on board until we start to acquire language. But make no mistake, the experiences that we are having in the world make deep and lasting impressions on us. And they're difficult to access because they live in the unconscious. They're not something we can necessarily talk about directly, which is why it is so important when you're doing any kind of deep emotional work, specifically trauma work, it's important to work somatically. The felt sense, it predates this narrative conception of yourself and the world that you live in. Also imagery, the language of dreams. This is how one accesses the unconscious. I've been doing this deep dive into Alejandro Jodorowsky's psychomagic. I got asked to be a part of a project I'm really excited about. And so I've been doing all this reading, and he was also very interested in Jungian psychology and really understood that poetry is an act of healing. And poetry, it accesses the part of the unconscious that promotes this healing. So, um, in order, he prescribes these living acts of poetry in order to resolve deep wounding and free us from these sort of places where we get stuck. And this is very much what the moon is asking us to do. The moon is an invitation for deep healing that invites us to look into the unconscious, shine the light of truth down into those dark waters to see what is there. And ultimately, what I'm going to suggest is that this isn't the easiest thing for most people to do. In fact, we are really a culture that's oriented towards checking out, and we do it in various ways. I mean, one way that gets talked about quite a bit in the present tense is social media, just disappearing into the endless scrolling. But the truth be told, we have been finding ways to disassociate for, since human beings, were formulating social groups. So, whether it's, disassociating around substances, losing yourself in relationships, becoming a workaholic, being compulsive about your behaviors when it comes to sexuality. All of these things are an attempt to stay above this deeper downward pull, which has a tendency of being frightening, painful. It is the most natural thing in the world for us to recoil from the hot stove. It takes a certain amount of courage to go and investigate the depths of one's unconscious, particularly if you're a person who's experienced any kind of trauma. So I would also make the suggestion that we don't do this alone. We don't do this in a vacuum. That we reach out for assistance from people within our community. We build relationships. When the wound is relational, the medicine has to be relational as well. And so It is this idea that we have to go in there and investigate, what are we holding on to? What feels unresolved? What feels exiled? What do I need to know about myself, my process, my history, to know why I engage in certain patterns of behavior over and over and over again, no matter how hard I try to dismantle them? What is this unconscious material that wants to be seen, just like the moon, right? The moon has no light of its own. It borrows light from the sun in order to be seen. This is what we are being asked to do right now. When the sun is at its peak, I'm sorry, the moon is at its peak illumination, it gives us the ability to see a little bit more clearly in the dark, right? And so this isn't a time to go and look what lies beneath the surface so that we can make a clear and decisive choice about what we wish to see in order for us to create it. Because this is a time where we can alchemize the distress of disowned material, again, both personally and collectively. Like, you know, all the pretty much since Citizens United became a thing, we have not had free elections because my vote can never compete with the vote of somebody who votes with their billions and billions of dollars. Elections are bought and sold in this country, right? And so in order to have a new society, we have to look at these choices that have been made, that have been orchestrated, that have not been for the good of the many. This is what lives in our shadow. This hierarchical, divisive structure of society that that suppresses, oppresses people at the bottom. This is what needs to be dismantled. This is what needs to be alchemized, right? Alchemy being the 14th century science of transmuting base metals into gold. This is a metaphor for transmuting our detritus, our that which is rotting from within, to transmute that into gold, into the gold of enlightenment. How can we take our most base instincts, the parts of us as human beings that think that in order for me to succeed, you must fail? And how can we alchemize that into an enlightened view of cooperation? So, this is what temperance is about. Temperance is about restoring balance. And like alchemy, it is the perfect combination of things in order to transmute these baser instincts into a collective enlightenment. And the result is ever so sweet. I mean, look at all this beautiful cup energy. Makes me want to cry. Look at this one. What if the world could feel like family? What if people felt a sense of belonging, of being seen and celebrated, of being appreciated for their unique gifts? What if the whole world could have the energy of the Ten of Cups, this feeling of being welcomed? The Nine of Cups, I always say, is like winning the tarot lotto. It's saying dare to dream big because anything your heart desires can and will be made manifest. The Nine of Cups is the antidote to the Seven of Cups. It is asking us to step into the vision we hold most sacred and know with certainty that it will transpire. This is like total joy, deep emotional fulfillment. This is absolutely possible for us at this time. And so, again, we are asked to consult our deepest inner truths, to sit with the discomfort and also hold it in consort with the joy, right? It isn't either or, it's and both. And this is what we call emotional maturity. This is the way we build emotionally mature social structures. And Spirit is saying that it is possible for us to transmute some of these darker, disowned energies into something truly beautiful and inviting at this time. So I'm just going to invite all of you to do some, inner reflective work on this full moon. Like, what is it that is uh, getting revealed to be healed for you? And how might you take that energy and filter it or funnel it into creative projects that make the world a better place? So I'm wishing you many blessings. My vision for all of us is to have a world that feels like family. Many blessings.